What if the thing that finally cracked you open wasn't therapy or medication or years of self-work, but a soldier behind enemy lines, walking through the war camp in pink lingerie? My name is Emily Letts. I'm a therapeutic dominatrix based in Boulder, Colorado. And this is the show where we get radically honest with ourselves about our part that we've taught ourselves to keep in the dark. And together, we bring them to the light. So today, I am joined by Aki, a former British Army doctor who served on the front lines of Afghanistan, survived PTSD, and is now on one of the most profound journeys of gender exploration I have ever witnessed. In this episode, we go deep into what it means to have built your entire identity around one of the hardest edges of masculinity, the warrior, and then go on to discover that your feminine was there the whole time, waiting, and the pathway to salvation. If you have ever felt like softness was weakness, or like you had to earn your right to receive, this one is for you. Welcome, Aki. It is such an honor to have you on the show.
Hi, Emily.
So first of all, tell me a little bit. One of the things we're talking about today is you have a background, a military background. Is that right?
That's right. I served in the British Army with Airborne Forces as a doctor on the front line in Afghanistan in 2008. It was a very, very dangerous time there and a lot of
Wow.
fatalities and injuries and a very intense period of my life. Yeah.
Whoa. How long were you in the military?
I was in for about 7 years, and that was the only tour of duty I did.
Aki, can you tell me what was your first understanding of masculinity?
Well, that's a deep question. I grew up in a household with two younger sisters, so I guess some of that derived from being a caretaker for two younger siblings. My dad worked very hard, and my mom also worked hard. So, from quite early on, I was like making lunch and uh, you know, um, yeah, I guess taking care of family. But I enjoyed the independent play, computer games, and I enjoyed sports at school. That was another, like, cross country running, soccer. And so I suppose I had quite a typical upbringing in terms of what masculinity was. Um, but things really changed as I got older and I started to become interested in the military. And nobody in my family had ever served, at least in the last few generations. And I began to do ultra marathons and endurance events. So I did a race called the Marathon des Sables, which is 7 marathons in 7 days in the Sahara Desert. And that was obviously like a big defining moment in what I
Whoa.
termed masculinity. And I met two military doctors there, and they said, if you like this and you can do it, join the army. So that was my next progression into I guess defined masculinity. Following that, we do this ultra marathon, you can join the army, and yeah, it was an interesting time of life for sure.
That's amazing. Wow. So from a young age, you had a very strong connection with, and it seems like a lot of value placed on this idea of being the provider, being the strong one, being the winner. Is that right?
Um, yes, there was also I've reflected a lot in my self awareness. There was also a kind of frustration of not being treated the same as my sisters. So they had these little doll play sets, little
Huh.
animal characters, and they played together really nicely. And when I tried to play, I was like, "Oh, you're a boy, like you can't play with us." So I think even early on, there was an aspect of me that was trying to come out as more feminine, but the stereotypes within the family was so set that I didn't meet the criteria. Like, "Oh, you're a boy, go away, like you can't play with us." And as I
Hmm.
reflected on that into gender fluidity, I can see how, um, say my mom, who didn't have a voice, all the time in her journey, like I had to use my voice very strongly to step into gender fluidity. Like I had to say things a lot of times. I had to explain things a lot of times. And so, I kind of retrospective, I've learned like the women in my life determined how easy the gender fluid experience was for me. And it wasn't easy to come into because of family dynamics, because of personal beliefs. And I guess
Mm.
having gone to that really extreme edge of what masculinity is, all the soldiers I served with were extremely fit, very, very toned, very athletic. You would say extreme acts of bravery, running under fire. There's not really space for femininity under fire. But the interesting thing was when we were in the base, and bear in mind, this is just pure desert with a few walls around it. There was a guy that started walking around wearing pink satin lingerie and white fishnet tights. And that was his way to relax
Whoa.
behind enemy lines. And it stuck with me for 18 years until I eventually tried it with my last partner. And it was a profound experience. And we can talk about that later. But I was blown away by this guy's strength to be a warrior and embody something very soft and sensual. And he really was, he doesn't know it, but he was a role model in my journey.
Okay, that is blowing my mind. Okay, let's just take a moment to reflect on that. When this man behind enemy lines, like in the dugout, was wearing lingerie, how was he received?
Everyone was just laughing at him and not like, I guess, when your mates have been injured or worse, any lightness to the mood is welcome, and even if it's something goofy like that. But I think there was something more to it for him. He was comfortable in himself. Like he didn't just like cover up and walk down and then strip off. Like he walked the entire length of the camp like that. And
Did he do it regularly?
I think I saw it a couple of times. Yeah.
Wow. And was he acting like it was a joke, or was he acting like this is just like me
I
taking
think
a
just
stroll and
him.
like
I think, yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
every
Historically, if you look at
that is
armies, like there is men are on a war campaign for months or historically years, and so they fall into kind of looking for sex amongst themselves. It's well documented in history, like Greeks and Romans and so on. And I'm not tainting any particular army with that story right now. It's not what I'm saying, but that ethos, I think, has, there's camaraderie and there's intensity of emotion and connection that is close to like sexual chemistry, without the physicality. Does that make sense? It's like they're the only people around you. They're your everything.
I mean, it concept for sure it makes sense. I'm still so curious about this specific instance because and maybe I'm ignorant here, my perception of military is that like femininity is weakness. Femininity is, you know what I mean? It's like beaten out of you. And so because like you said, there's no room for femininity in war because it's such survival and it's such, violence and all of these things. Um and yet so like to take up that space so blatantly, my mind goes to like wouldn't he be ostracized and like you know what I mean to the point of people not trusting him, or I feel like he'd get in trouble or something like that.
No, I think there was some good laughs at his expense, and some people supported him, and some people were indifferent. I think if you took a cross reference of society, that's probably the same. Some people are like, oh, that's weird. Some people are like, oh, okay, he's doing what he enjoys, and some people are like, yeah, that's really cool. Like, I wish I had the confidence to try it. And I suspect there was a range of responses to it. And I think the other thing is behind enemy lines like that, the rules are relaxed a bit. You don't have to be clean shaven every day. You can grow a mustache. You can have like a day's stubble. Like
Yeah.
you're not expected to have. There was no running water. There was barely electricity. Right there. There was no entertainment. That we had mail dropped by helicopter once a week. There was no air conditioning, and it was like the average
Whoa.
temperature inside the dugout where we slept day and night was 38 Celsius. 38 day and night.
Oh my god.
No windows, one door, no draft. So like you slept in whatever you wanted, and maybe that was his. comfort thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. It's almost like in a place with such a restraint on humanity, there's almost like more acceptance for it,
Yeah, you're
for
you're
what
accepting.
little is available to you.
Oh, totally. Like you're accepting a cross section of society that most civilians will never see. Like you're seeing a lot of other things that are very dark and very sinister and very painful. And so it makes sense. Like you're probably willing to go a little bit to the other end of the spectrum as well, right? And do and say things and enjoy things that you wouldn't have maybe considered otherwise.
Wow. Wow, that's mind-blowing. So, can you tell me how long were you in the military? And tell me, like, what is your
Um,
military
yeah, I mean,
background?
yeah, so I joined at medical school. They give you a sponsorship if you like, and then I did 2 years in a hospital. I went to Sandhurst Military College in the UK for 1 month, and then really soon after that was deployed to Afghanistan, and then did some time in the barracks, basically like working as a a general physician for the soldiers, so anything they needed. And then I started to have symptoms of PTSD from the tour, and I had a flashback whilst I was at work, and I was downgraded and eventually discharged. So that was the end of my career. Unfortunately, I left medicine and I found Reiki and healing tool, and then mindfulness instructor course, and then I trained with several different shamans, and really my understanding of psychology, spirituality, and things like Kundalini and Tantra. It's been a fascinating journey, like looking at how I can use different things to heal the psychology of PTSD. Because the trauma is so deeply rooted. I mean, there was one study they used electron microscopes to look at brain cells of someone with military-related PTSD versus civilian, like a car accident, say, and the amount of physical scarring was 300% more with military-related PTSD.
Oh my
So
god.
you've got to find a really deep range of tools to kind of work through, and Native Americans, First Nations, Greeks, Romans, they all had philosophies on how to rehabilitate soldiers, and we don't. We got 24 hours on the beach in Cyprus with a couple of cans
Hmm.
of beer, and that was it. Then you were back in the UK with your family. And I think the Americans have a similar system, and that's not enough time to turn the battlefield off in your mind. So. Um,
Whoa.
yeah.
What? So tell me, how has this is actually a beautiful segue. I'm let's take a breath. Let me take a breath. I'm filled with such reverence for the journey that you've been on, and the life journey from taking care of two sisters all the way to where you are now. And what I hear from you is like a deep devotion to healing, not only yourself, but those around you. And that is, you know, I believe one of the most noble paths there is. So I'm just filled with like such gratitude for you to take the time to share your story with us.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
means a lot.
I'm
Yeah.
curious. So you I'm curious, you said you're on this, you've been working with shamans, you're really the psychology and the what does it mean to support veterans from healing from PTSD. How has your gender played into this tapestry of healing?
Um, that's a really good question, Emily. I think there's one thing to say. You've already mentioned it. The soldiers kind of have to divorce themselves a little bit from their inner feminine to be the ruthless warriors on the front line, right? So there's the kind of
Hmm.
there's the collective story of a soldier having to get in touch with, you know, if a soldier has an injury, he tends to work harder, take more painkillers, push through the pain, and be really masculine and strong. And how can you rehabilitate the mind to say
Mm,
life is
mm,
not a mission,
mhm,
and you can take time, you can be soft, you can rest, you can be devoted to yourself. And one of the things I've designed is a program called Mission Between Missions. So rather than telling a soldier you're broken, you're saying your rest, your recovery, your softness is the mission now. And that's what I really am passionate about, helping people to
mm,
just turn it on its head. You can still be a soldier, you can still be a warrior, but just make the mission like softness and kindness and flow and yoga and extra sleep and not having 5 cups of coffee to keep awake and keep pushing through the psychological pain. So that's the kind of collective story.
mhm.
And that I want to separate that very categorically from my sexual and gender because it's not the same. I'm not saying that every soldier should have that experience. That's a very personal experience. And I hope that that's really clear to everybody. I don't want any soldier coming on saying, "Oh, I'm
Mhm.
not, that's not the therapy I need."
Yeah.
Like this is a personal journey here. And it was a beautiful experience with
Mhm.
my second wife. Um, and we're divorced now, but she opened up. Well, we opened up together an understanding of polarity, and some of that was through kink. So, one of the beautiful things about that is you can take sexual play, and I'm telling the person who does it professionally, right? You take a sexual play and you use it to heal the psyche. So, um, that was a profound understanding of like pleasure healing pain. And for me, the interesting thing that came out was the rules of the
Mm,
military were so prescriptive that rules in pleasure became the medicine for healing the stuckness in the soldier. So like how long pleasure lasted or what pleasure was or what was prescribed for me or for her, like playing with rules as a pleasure actually provided a really profound healing for the kind of stuck warrior mindset. And I think you see that in
mm,
high performing men, like they in their work, they're 100% masculinity, and then some of them like to come home and be the submissive or be the effeminate man in the bedroom, and that's their. I can take this whole persona, this armor off of being this infallible man and be soft and feminine and receptive. And the term um, embodied receptivity really, really hits home for me. It's like you don't
mm.
even have to be
Ugh.
feminine. If you let your body be receptive rather than the masculine productivity you're constantly pushing out, like just receive, like let the body receive, like let it soften.
Mm.
And I still miss her touch and the things she found that brought that alive for me. And ultimately, one of those things was experiencing lingerie for the first time, and that blew my mind.
Mm.
The softness of fabric and the change. You know, never having tried anything like that, like the change in the texture to the skin and the sensuality. And she took a picture of me, and I was just like, why are you doing that? I feel so embarrassed. And she said, this is the bravest I've ever seen you. And my heart just melted.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. That's so beautiful. It is so I keep thinking about, they say if you're sad, put a smile on your face,
Mhm.
and then the receptivity of the muscles will then improve your mood kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's the I always think about that when I hear cross dressers for the first time putting on lingerie or stockings, or the feeling of these softer fabrics that have connotations of more receptivity, of what that can do to the brain and the body, to actually then be able to embrace that concept. And I just have so much respect for what you're saying. I actually had, my dad was a police officer, PTSD, anger management. I hit my father and I have a good relationship, but 25 years as a police officer with zero mental health support. That's gonna gunk up your brain and your body and your heart. Um, he used to say it's like putting a bulletproof jacket on every single morning is like going to war for 25 years. Like he went to war every day for 25 years and is was he what he said. Um, Except it's the kind that just gets like normalized and there's not that camaraderie and there's not that like yeah. Anyway, so I had a big conversation with him recently where I sat him down and literally talked to him about receptivity of like, his job is to provide. And I took him out to a swamp and we just sat in the forest, which is his happy place, and I just had a long, slow, very still conversation with him about you know how to give love, your version of it, but you don't know how to receive love, which means that nobody can actually ever really love you. It was a big conversation for him. I think I think things did begin to change after that, but I just really appreciate you saying I think that's one of the biggest things why I'm so passionate about cross-dressing for men and supporting men in exploring their femininity is to ignite that's the soul concept of receptivity.
Um, I want to say two things. First of all, thank you for sharing your personal story with me. Like, I have a lot of respect for first responders.
Mm.
We reflect on that a lot. Like, our tour of duty is in a foreign country for a finite period of time, and we come home. And yes, we come home with much more compounded trauma because there's much more death and destruction. But I think
Yeah.
it's worth acknowledging that they bring their trauma home every night, and their home is their war zone. And if he's done 25
Mhm.
years, I think that's incredible, and he's lucky to have you. And secondly, the first time I saw your video on Instagram, I think I actually cried because I had recently got divorced, and the person who had supported me in that journey was gone very, very suddenly by email after 6 years. And you just came out there and
Yeah.
you're like, you should do this. It's great. It's really powerful. It's really profound. It's really pleasurable. And my jaw just hit the ground. I was like, there's another woman out there that supports me. And you were like the first person I came across on Instagram who was like such a profound advocate for, I don't even want to call it cross-dressing. It's men's bodies experiencing a different
Thank
sort
you.
of
Yeah.
receptivity. It doesn't have to be the full-on dress and the
Yeah.
makeup. It's like, it's like, if you think about it in terms of like, are you the breadwinner and creating, or are you the person standing at the bank just being given a bag of gold? Like it's that kind of thing. It's like, are you creating? Are you grafting? Are you grinding? Or are you just saying, yeah, I'm here to receive? And I think the more men can balance that ritual of hard work and receptivity, it's not just for us, it's for the women in our life. They can then be in that polarity too. And that's what I really appreciated about our relationship. She said a few times, I love you, wife. And I said a few times, I love you, husband. And
Mm.
she sent me flowers, and
Mm.
we had a distance relationship. She's based in the US. And yeah, those are some really profound moments to acknowledge. As you said, the soul, we're more than human, we're souls, right? And to acknowledge what has
Yeah.
existed in the body, in the flesh, not in this flesh, but but between us before. And we worked with cannabis as a psychedelic and then went into some of those past lives, and they were very, very profound. And Jung talks about the contrasexual, which is like the lifelong exploration of what we aren't in this body as the embodiment of our sexuality, and like you're constantly finding the bits of you that you've exiled. And for someone who was forced into an idea of what masculinity was for the first almost 30 years, like this was a profound journey, and realizing that not only did I have access to my feminine, I actually prefer my feminine. And
Mm.
I think, like in terms of pleasure, I think it helps having a medical degree. So I understand orgasms in women are very different. They're very profound. They're the whole body. They have different hormonal releases. And for men, it's evolutionary. It's very localized. And I'm very profoundly grateful that I can experience both. And so
Mm. Can you tell me
I
more about that?
well, I mean, you're talking about receptivity and penetration, and being the penetrator or the receiver, right? Essentially, but it's also the mindset, and I part of my own self therapy
Mm.
is writing a book of poetry. So, what is it like to embody the feminine without being, um, without going to the idea of changing the body? And that is something I've hit an intensely painful few years where I was just like, I can't do this because I want to work with veterans and they won't respect me unless I'm a man. And I have a daughter who I need to be a dad for. But maybe later in life, like
Mm.
I feel this joy that when I see trans people, they've taken their inner passion and they've made it their outer passion. They're like, I'm not content with just clothing. I'm going to make
Mm.
my body, my temple to my inner beliefs. And there's so much stigma around it. And,
Mm.
and, it's like racism. You can't get away from it. It's there. It's ugly. And everyone has their own belief, and some of that's religious, some of that's spiritual. But the core nature, we're all souls trying to find our identity, and however you do that, I think is okay. If it's religion, that's your thing. If it's I'm going to be this like steroid taking ultra masculine dude, go do your thing. And if you find masculinity, for me, as this, it's the entire spectrum from the warrior to the effeminate man that's happy wearing lingerie under his clothes to the goddess. I work with the moon cycles now in my spiritual awareness, the energies of the earth, the understanding that creation and destruction happens in everything, the ocean tides and everything else. And if you can go right into your total 100% feminine and come back to the masculine without collapsing, for me, that's masculinity. If you can spend days in your feminine
Wow.
essence and still not quite break the masculine container and come back to it, that for me has become my new definition of what.
Yeah, one of the things I'm also hearing is and this is the thing that and you probably know also is like the ability for your masculine to hold your feminine. So I wonder if it's not necessarily you're coming back to your masculine, but just like that, like you never left your masculine, but it's just holding your feminine
Yeah,
so that you can go fully into your feminine without moving into chaos because the feminine without the masculine is chaos. Like it so the masculine whole we all have the masculine and our capacity to hold ourselves is in the masculine, which is such an important practice.
yeah, I totally agree. It's really nice to talk to someone that has, the same view on things. I think it's these kind of dialogues are important, and they're important. They're important.
Well, one of the things I really appreciated you saying, um, was that this work I'm like, ugh, when you said it, I just wanted to give you a standing ovation because, like, this work is not necessarily about cross-dressing. Like,
Yeah,
the idea, in fact, to I sometimes feel that when I'm trying to market or share this message, like, I talk specifically cross-dressers, 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 and and that and I'm doing that just so that people can hear me, they know where they're at, and people it's mostly marketing, what's my audience, but the reality is, like, what I'm speaking to is exactly what you're speaking to, which actually is so profound, and it's in the mycelium of, the entire human race of this deep imbalance within within all of us humans, and this belief that the masculine and feminine are at war, or are opposing, rather than balancing each other in delicious polarity. And the polarity within our beings, the polarity interpersonal, polarity like societal polarity, and even transpersonal like polarity. It's everywhere. And just like the deep suffocation that we have done to men, like I yeah, it's the thing that fuels this work more than, for me, more than anything else. And that it's more than just like sexual gratification and cross-dressing. That's like the tiny seed from which I want to plant an entire vineyard, an entire mountainscape from that. And I sometimes think that gets lost in translation. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I'm just smiling away, going, "Yeah, she's speaking my language." Um, and mine is the opposite. And I want to say thank you as a woman who like recognizes what's been done to men. We see it medically, like testosterone levels and sperm counts are dropping off generation after generation. There's a kind of collective shift out of what masculinity used to be. And for me, the
Oh,
work is
interesting.
I looked at what was my contribution as a warrior on the planet right now. You look at war around, and yes, I went out there
Mm.
as a healer, and I had the self-restraint in one of the most dangerous wars on the planet to not fire my weapon because my immediate personal personal well-being was not in danger. And um,
Mhm.
and we were close enough to walking through cornfields to hear the Taliban cocking their rifles. Like that's how close things got. You were close enough to hear them preparing their weapons.
Mhm.
And and then I went through a series of 30 something court hearings with my first wife about seeing my daughter and experienced some profound uh prejudice against both PTSD, being in the military, and my skin color. My daughter's mixed race, and
Wow.
I I went into rage fueled moments personally and privately, like not in court or not at my ex, like how can life be this unfair? And what is it I'm contributing? And I
Yeah.
came to the opposite conclusion to you. I was just like, how can I repurpose the warrior? And for me, I think you kind of already mentioned it. It's like you look at the archetypes, right? The warrior, the priestess. And for me, like earth magic, sex magic, like literary magic, creative magic, and all those kinds of things. It's like how can I be the embodiment of a balance between the warrior and the priestess? Why not? How can I be the king and the maiden? And it's the same as the other way around. Like I see you as like a maiden king energy. It's like you got this very powerful presence, and yet the soft feminine, and
Yeah, that's
you know,
fair.
and I think
I love that. That's
life is
true. There's
more
something
interesting.
about us both that kind of, yeah. There's
Yeah,
something about us both that kind of are the opposites but balance each other out.
yeah, yeah.
I like that.
And it's been rewarding work. One of the things my ex-wife taught me, she was such this peaceful embodiment of the feminine a lot of the time. And she had her demons as well, but she said I can just feel in my body, in my feminine. I can have this feminine feeling, and she slowed me down enough to feel. And I'm really grateful because now, when I'm faced with a problem, I
Mm.
have the masculine. What is this intellectual being saying, and what is this feminine body saying? And then I try and find a halfway house. Like,
Mm.
are they the same? Are they different? You know, the feminine body say, no, that's not for today, and the alpha brain, the piece of me that has the Virgo perfectionism and the high functioning autism, it's like, I got to get it done today, I've got to get it done today, and the body's going, dude chill, like just tomorrow is good enough. And you talked about the war within, and
Mhm.
that's my war within. It's like the desire to push forward all the time, and like the inner feminine saying like you don't have to like break yourself to get there. Um,
It's interesting because honestly, like, this is one of the biggest journeys that I've gone on in the last couple of years is the same, and actually I'm in it right now, like, deep, deep, deep in it because I've got some chronic gut issues, but, like, this idea of I spout this language all the time to all of my clients, and it's a different thing, like, actually doing the work myself on an extremely subtle level to heal chronic health conditions. But the true idea that your body has so much wisdom, like, there are every single decision that I make, there's a way in which I could move the world where my body moves first. My body gives me the signal. My brain is then the one that's just like a traffic guard. That's just like, "Oh, yep, yep, it is right time." Like, we can make that work on the larger scale of your day or whatever. If you need this is we have time for that or whatever. Um, and it's very challenging work. Like, it is not easy to slow down and listen to your body and let the inner feminine, that knowing, that wisdom that is connected because our bodies are connected to the ecosystem of I just imagine all of these little roots connected to between us and every single thing around us. Like I said, the mycelium, the root system, and so our bodies can feel all of these signals from everything. It's like we have our own little Wi-Fi channel where we give and receive for all of these other forces, but to really be able to listen to that, it is and to decondition ourselves from living within our brain is very challenging.
you're running an operating system that's run for 20, 30, 40 years, right? And that was conditioned without your consent, without your knowledge. Before you became conscious, you had a computer system in your brain, by your parents, by your
Yeah.
siblings, by society. And stopping
Mm.
the programming, it's like if you update your phone to the latest software, you can't use it whilst it's updating. Your phone's inoperable whilst it's downloading and reconfiguring, right? And that, for me, like
Huh.
those downloads and are kind of like recalibrating the mind is like that. Like your mind is recalibrating. You're going to be broken for a few days or a few weeks or a few months whilst you
Uh,
learn how to re-engage with life. And
I
for
love that.
me, like the sexual and the sensuality was so life altering. Like on my coaching website, I changed my pronouns to they them. Like
Mm.
and this is
Mm.
my debut. Like this is the most public I've been. I've spoken to a few friends, but for me, embracing
Mm.
being more than just masculine has become so important. And I have a daughter who's 16, and she texted me like, "Dad, I just felt like I needed to step into my masculine and chase some monsters away." And that wasn't prompted by me. And I was just like, I may not have been physically present in her life, but that was a moment where I was like, yeah, she's got the same gift of understanding. And one of my passions, like you said, is working with men. For me, it's working with women. And I ran a women's only retreat for women of
Mm.
domestic abuse, and women's empowerment. I was like taking them from pain into pleasure, psychologically. And that's my passion, is like um, helping the feminine rise. And that's the name of my poetry book, is She Rises Within. It's like, if I can cultivate that feminine rising within, then cultivating outside of me is that much easier. It's the same work you do, right? You cultivate your inner
Mm.
masculine and you bring it out in the men you work with.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then I bring out I stand in the masculine so that the men can be in their feminine and to do the exact work that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's your feminine I hear you say you have your poetry book.
Yeah.
What does your feminine how does it get to express itself outside of your poetry in your current living life?
Yeah. Well, that's how you and I met because I'm going to be honest. It was such a profound loss that I tried to commit suicide end of last year. Like the loss of the
Mm,
partner that held my feminine container. And I did so much therapeutic work, and my therapist was wonderful. And she said, you've had various heartbreaks as a man through your life, with partners, around your child, around your career, around family, and so on. But this is your first heartbreak as a feminine being, as a feminine spirit. And she doesn't have a
mm.
rule book. She doesn't
Wow.
have a rule book. She doesn't know how to cope with the loss. And I felt grief like I have never experienced, because it was the suppressed grief of 44 years coming to the surface. All the times
Yeah.
I or somebody else had marginalized my inner feminine broke in that moment. And I took an overdose, and the ambulance service said it would take 3 hours to get to me, and I knew I wouldn't be around. So I ran down the road to a car that had the headlights on, and I said, "You got to get me to ER now." And
Mm,
I survived. And coming to, I realized that, again, with the help of a therapist and lots of inner work, it was up to me now. It was up to me to really narrate the inner story of what my inner feminine looked like. And it was like replacing lingerie with the stuff that was new to me, just me, finding words to encapsulate what it meant to me, and holding the hope that I'll meet someone who will not just respect my inner feminine, but want to tend to her the way I want to tend to her inner masculine. For me, that's become
mm,
the goal of a relationship. There's like, there's two partnerships in one. And I think that's why the grief of the loss of that relationship was so intense, because I grieved her as a wife, and I grieved her as a husband and as a feminine lover. And
mm,
there were so many layers, and we raised four children. She had three children, I had one child. And so, your best friend, co-parent, and all these complex sexual layers, like, it was a profound loss. And that's when I turned to you
mm,
for help with that session. And, you gave me the confidence to go and say, you write the story. And that's what I've been doing since we last spoke, is like
mhm,
continuing to commit to understanding um, what, and I've named her Amy, what Amy looks like, what she wants to be,
mm.
how she came about, what she wants for the future, and is it the same as what Aki wants? And usually it is. And, when I give her the reins, she's like, yeah, we talked about going out clubbing with my ex, and like being in that feminine essence together, like out dancing and kind of just being merry. And she was like, I really want to do that. I need to do that soon. And so, but it's like waiting for the right person to do that
Mm,
with. And it's
mm,
it's kind of fun. Life is, there's a big piece of grief work which I've been doing, which is I I buried five really good men, real heroes. And survivor's guilt played a huge part
mm.
being a medic. You're the gatekeeper between the story of the hero and the 2 or 3 generations of grief that comes afterwards. Like, you might not be responsible for their death, but you're the death dealer of that life into tragedy. And it's a really, really heavy price
Yeah.
to pay. And so when you decide to say, those men did not die in vain, because I'm going to live life to the full now. Like, I finished mourning, I finished grieving. And for me, the thing that I'm taking away is like having this full life, which is not just the masculine, but also the embodied feminine. Like, that's going to be my thing, which
Yes.
I'm devoted to, because it means so much to me. No, it's not, it is profound sexual pleasure, but it is so much more than that. It's like feeling whole. And,
Yeah. Mm,
um, um, yeah, it's like, if I can give that that kind of scale of meaning to losing really good men, like that that's enough. Like that's the ending of my grief cycle as a warrior and becoming the next chapter.
Let's take a breath together with that. Mm. I feel profoundly moved by you. Yeah. I sense all of the heartbreak that you have danced with in your life and these acute experiences of loss, both loss of life and loss of love, that I can only imagine have the capacity to capsize you every once in a while. But what it means to bring your feminine in as a way to turn the boat over, to get back up again, and what it means to like sit in your grief. Can you share a little bit what does it mean to grieve in your feminine?
Mm. There's no shortcuts. You have to sit with it. There's no
Such a good
shortcuts.
answer. Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I feel the feminine grief. My body has remembered the ability to remember the pain of cycles, of period cycles. So my body syncs with my partner.
Mm,
So I feel cramps, I feel
mm,
emotions, and it's not new. Like men have had, they call it the heart. It's like the womb space. You know, there were male priestesses for generations. There are tribes where like the two spirits in Native Americans, they're both masculine and feminine, and all over the world, like men really embody the feminine. And for me, tuning into that cycle within my body has been a really profound way to tap into
mm,
grief release and medically thinking about what happens with emotion. It drops down through your womb and you release it in your shedding, in your menstruation. So
mm,
consciously making that an energetic practice of like, there's pain up here, I'm going to drop it down between my legs
mm,
and release it into the earth has been a really like grounding heavy emotions into the earth and letting them go that way has been a really profound experience. And I think with masculine pain, there's a torture to it because men are not taught how to sit with pain. They're told that pain is
mm,
if you're feeling pain, it's a sign of weakness. And, you know, I can see, historically, like men had to be the stronger spirit for I'm not even going to go into the reasons why. It doesn't need explaining, but um, I think balance is, you talked about polarity, and we're never going to heal as a planet until we find polarity between the light and the dark and the hate and the love and the pain and the pleasure and the masculine and the feminine. Like that's the spiritual journey, is like how much in the center of polarity can you find yourself? Um, and so
mm,
like embracing the love of being a warrior and the knowledge that it hurts people, and like really having to sit with like, I got some sort of gratification in seeing people hurt each other, but then
mm.
n- being able to witness that without being self-critical, because everybody in watches a Hollywood movie gets the same pleasure. Otherwise, there would be no war movies. There would be no action movies. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
It's like, or computer games that are violent. So I don't see myself as like perverted for having enjoyed that. It was just a moment of having to witness. There was an intense pleasure to being on the front line and witnessing it firsthand.
I'm curious if that is it's interesting that you said, like, men don't aren't able to sit with pain. I'm curious if that and men are also the one who's, I mean, stereotypically more drawn to getting pleasure out of watching pain, like physical pain in other people. I'm wondering if that's like the way of externalizing and being with the pain that they can't with that can't be with on the inside.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Uh, my favorite piece of work with anyone who's served is finding out at what age they became a soldier. It's not when they
Ah,
join. It's
yeah,
not when they join the military. What age did you have to become a soldier? And for me, without going into too much
yeah,
detail, it was like protecting my mom and my sisters. And
yeah,
I wrote a poem, and it said something like, I learned the scars of war and the sense of duty long before I had the uniform and the rifle. And so it's like a
yeah,
testament to me, it kind of goes back to my childhood of like, yeah, I got to play the computer games and the sports, but I was pushed away from the nurturing the little animal figurines in their dream world, right? And so some of it I think comes from societal views of how we raise boys and girls differently and separately. And I think more and more
yeah,
conscious parenting is about allowing freedom of choice and exposing them to everything. But you get cultures where things are very polarized still, and you end up in that position where war and conflict is the solution to any problem. And can you blame them? No. Can you be
right.
angry about it? Yes. And then I come back to like, how can I can spend the rest of my life angry at, religious fanatics or, whatever the brand of warmongery is, because I've seen the devastation firsthand, landmines next to
Yeah,
schools, who does that? And
yeah,
you can twist yourself up, or you can go, I'm going to take that pain and I'm going to turn it into pleasure somehow. And for me, um,
yeah.
uh, the actual dynamic, the kink dynamic of pain and pleasure, kind of impact play. You're igniting pain in the nervous system, and then you're being touched and stroked and spoken to in a certain way, and the aftercare. All those painful nerves start to receive pleasure, and that's done with compassion, that, or like restraint. Like, I felt really controlled growing up, and so being restrained and
Mm,
then pleasured was a profound experience, and vice versa. Like, um and the other way around in the partnership, it was like bringing pleasure into what had been painful, and growing together. It was a really, really
mm.
profound experience. And I think you asked, I'm trying to get back to the question you asked about feminine grief, and one day will arrive where that's not the question, right? I think is the ultimate answer. There's no difference. But I think we're a really long way off that.
Yeah,
We're a really, really long way off.
yeah.
Women's bodies are
I
different.
love that.
You, you got to remember, like, your eggs were in your mom. You as a fetus already had
Mhm,
your eggs, and you gestated in your
mhm,
mom. And I don't know if you have children, you're going to have children, or if you did, like, the child that comes from those eggs is essentially was in their grandmother. So the transmission of
mm,
feminine pain, like even medically speaking, is right there in front of us. And that's why I am such a fan of like helping the feminine heal, because you're making generational changes. They're the birth portals through which the next generation comes, and the healthier we can
mm.
bring the feminine into expression, the quicker we, like, you can either do it through fighting, like that masculine aggression, or you can just say, let's just have healthier feminine. Let's not argue about like how we get, let's just have healthier feminine. like you want to argue about like what it is. Yeah,
Amen.
let's just make the statement. Let's have healthier feminine on the planet. Like let's make that the goal.
Uh, I could honestly listen to you talk all day, but we're going to start wrapping it up. But before we do, I want to ask you, one of the things I continue to say to my audience is that the feminine is inherently communal. And one of the things that I hear, do you mind if I give some reflections back?
Of course, I love that. Yeah,
And we might have talked about this before, but one of the things I hear you say in terms of your grief with losing your partner, who seems like your ex partner, um, is and to be clear, she didn't pass away. She just you broke up, right? But losing your ex-partner was that she was able to evoke th this feminine experience for you and fostered that. And I hear you also say with the grief of losing her is also the grief of having access to, um, a a reality in which your feminine is celebrated by more than yourself. What what other people how do you what other people in your life have you cultivated to help you sustain and deepen your feminine?
I think my daughter's a large part of that. I split up with my first
Mm.
wife left, asked me to leave when our daughter was 9 months old. So I single parented her from a very young
Well,
age. And,
mm,
she's a really girly girl and she started painting my nails and I paint her nails. And, she'd want to look in all the like the the accessory stores. And it kind of took me back to my childhood of being dragged around the shops with my sisters and just being there with them whilst they did their shopping. And so I think my daughter's been a huge part of 16-year-old. She's
mm,
very 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 into her femininity and supporting her in that. It's not that it brings out mine, but
mhm,
uh, I I can see. I think I have a different level of comfort with it now. Like I don't feel like the protected dad. I can be in that feminine essence next to her and support her. Sometimes she needs a dad. Sometimes she needs the
mhm,
kind of softer, like, she started dating and she was asking questions and like about
mhm.
her self-confidence and things. So it was like that she's definitely been a part of that journey. And honestly, I
That's
think
beautiful.
some online groups and talking to people like yourself.
Mm,
And one of the things with like internal family systems work is like you go through, you find the bit that you've exiled. And for me, it was like my feminine, the feminine eros and all of the bits that come with it. And the last step is like maintenance. And so you're asking me the question to
mm,
what I'm trying to work out for myself right now. It's like I've discovered all these bits. I know they exist. I know I
yeah,
love them. How do I maintain them? And
yeah.
that could probably be a whole other podcast, with someone else on its own. I think that's a really
Mm,
complex field, but I don't have all the answers. I'm a work in progress, and
yeah. But what I'm hearing is there's not a lot of men in your life, other masculine bodies that you've been able to share this journey with. Is that
Um,
right?
well, I'm in a sheltered accommodation for veterans at the moment. There's 25 one-bedroom apartments, and there's
Mhm.
24 men here. And a couple of people know. Um,
Well,
not in any detail, but just I changed my pronouns and whatever else, and I'm writing a poetry book. And I have a couple of girlfriends who know more in detail, and they've read a couple of the poems, and I've been courageous to share with them. Um, and one
wow.
friend said, "Please send me the link to the podcast." So I want to know what you said. So
Mm.
um, I, I I've reflected on this a lot, and part of the sadness for me is that my second wife wasn't into this before. She had never done any of this before.
Mm.
So we mutually explored this for the very first time, step by step, over 16 years. Sorry, 6 years. And
Wow.
you never
Yeah.
get those firsts again. Like however intimate the next time
Yeah.
around us, there's something magical about holding each other's hand through a journey like that. And that's why I was so
Yeah.
heartbroken that she just left without any, I have literally haven't heard from her in a year, like done, divorce, here you go, bye. And yeah,
Wow.
I don't know the reason why, but to I would say to anybody on the journey, like if you're having first together, like for goodness sake, cherish those things because you this is the advice I gave to my daughter. You never get a first again. You might get something more profound, but you never get a
Yeah.
first again. And so if you're on that journey with
Mhm.
somebody else, like grab it and work with it as
Mm.
long as it is healthy. And
Mm.
take the opportunity
Yeah.
to grow together.
I think that's so beautiful, and I just like, I would be remiss if I didn't do a little plug. This is exactly why I am launching Outrageously Her, this cohort, for this exact reason, is because so many people have gone their entire lives maybe exploring this side of themselves in the background, but they've never actually brought it to another person. Right? It's in the closet, it's in the garage, it's in the storage unit. It's secret and it's their own private practice, which I think is so beautiful. But when you actually allow another person, it doesn't matter, obviously there's something deeply special about being accepted and celebrated by your intimate partner, but even just anyone, whether that is like a girlfriend or a friend or a family member, and being accepted and celebrated and seen, and then being able to, and then let alone being able to grow with that person and explore and test and stretch. It's it creates depth and richness and layers that are unimaginable in a private solo practice, especially one that is shrouded in shame and secrecy.
Yeah.
And it's just like the idea of a cohort of men coming together to be with each other in this deep way, and to meet like once, two times a month for 2 hours, you know what I mean? And share like this and be in feminine practices. It's I just feel like men's support group for their feminine is like, this is the only way. I mean, and it's similar to what it sounds like you want to do with veterans a little bit. It's like, I feel like this is the only way we heal each other and like our larger society.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I just
Um,
feel so passionate about it.
I can see it. I can see it. Um, with PTSD, there's a secondary injury called moral injury, and it's like you've witnessed something
Ah,
that is goes against your conscience, or you had to do something that's against your conscience, or you had to take an action that you felt guilt or shame around. And I suspect if you look at
mm,
cross dressers who do it in private, because they're going against something that society typically says shouldn't happen. And I'm not commenting on whether that's right or wrong, but because there's guilt or shame, there may be this moral injury, which a program like yours would be amazing at unraveling of like, uh,
mm,
but you unwrap the layers of guilt and shame until the pleasure itself is not rooted in guilt and shame. It's registered in the polarity and the pure depth. It can be guilt and it can be shameful as well. But for me, exploring it like
mm,
initially alone, like in videos, and then with my partner, that's what unraveled. And it sounds like that's what you want to do, is like take away those layers of guilt and shame until
mm.
they get in touch with the innocence that's underneath.
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
I'm
What a
really
perfect
excited
way
to
to
see
end
how it
this
goes.
podcast. Thank you. Well, I'm probably gonna be in touch because I'm actually very excited. Like, where could the dynamic between us go? There's so much synchronicities around how we move that I feel excited about the future hold for us. But in the meantime, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like, I just Thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you so much for sharing the depths of your being and your heartache with us, especially doing it publicly for the first time. What an honor. What a complete and absolute honor. And I know that this episode is going to touch so many people. Um yeah,
And
so
thank you
thank
for
you.
witnessing me, and thank you for having the courage to go on Instagram and speak your truth, because I found you because you spoke your truth. And if you say this is going to help others, like, I think that's the beauty of the ripple work of like going in deep, is you never just help one person. There's always a ripple to others. And that's one of my deep joys.
Yeah.
Like,
I love it. Do you wanna share where can people find you? Do you want people to be able to see your coaching or
sure.
your
Yeah. Yeah.
poetry or anything?
The poetry is still underway. I'll have a link on my website. But my coaching website is just simply quantummedic.com, quantummedic.com. And I'm
Do you
one of
wanna
those
spell
people,
quantum?
as the word quantum, as in quantum healing or quantum mechanics. So like the traditional spelling of it,
Mhm,
and then quantum medic.
mhm.
I'm genuinely happy to answer questions on email. But yes, there are paid sessions, but if people just want to ask a few questions, like, I'm happy for people to reach out to you.
Mhm. I love it. Well, thank you again so much, Aki, and, yeah, we will be in touch.
Thanks, Emily. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.